All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I am so glad that you're taking a break from work and spending a few minutes with us this afternoon. If you have been with us with some of our previous webinars, welcome back. If you're a first timer, welcome, welcome. We're excited to have you here as well. So I don't know about you, but prior my task and making sure that I'm taking advantage of all of my time during the day is something that I actually struggle with. So I'm excited about today's webinar. I actually was going to come online, with a Post-it on my forehead because this is kind of how I feel some days, and I love using Post-its. We had some good discussion going on in the chat box there with 50 billion Post-its being used or being produced each year. One thing that I didn't know that I thought was interesting that I will share, there's also 27 different sizes and 57 different colors of Post-its. So there you go. If you're ever on Jeopardy, now you've got some useless Post-it information to take with you. So we're excited to have you here. Today's webinar is brought to you by UNC Charlotte's Office of Continuing Ed. We actually have about 26 different certificate programs, everything from project to process management. We've got a certificate program in human resources management, media and event planning, paralegal. We've got 4 tech boot camps. You name it, we just about have it. We also do corporate and custom training where we can take any of our courses, customize them to your organization's specific needs, and then either deliver them on site or deliver them online. And we do training all over the U.S. So, if you need us to come to Indiana or Texas or wherever you are, we'll be happy to come out there. So, leading us in today's discussion is Rob Dibble. He's got over 20 years of experience working in different levels of learning and development with a variety of different companies, and some of his specialties are team building, working with different personalities in the workforce, communication, negotiation, conflict resolution, and leadership. So you guys are in for a treat today. As always, we do need to talk a little bit about the rules of engagement. So today's session will be 45 minutes, followed by about 15 minutes of Q&A. And because we have so many folks on here today, we have muted your mic and your video, but we do have the chat box, and if you've been to some of our other webinars, you know that they are very interactive, and we're always asking you to put something in the chat box. So excited about that. In addition, today's webinar will be recorded. You'll receive an email at probably closer within the next 24 hours that will include a copy of that recording. There'll also be a link on there to fill out the evaluation. Please take the time to do that. I promise it takes 5 minutes to fill out. And just let us know what you liked about the webinar and maybe some of the skills that you're going to take back into the workplace. And then finally on that email, we're going to load you up with lots of great bonus content as well. There are 2 TED Talks that we're including, an article, and then as we go through, we're going to talk a little bit about the Eisenhower matrix, and we're going to include a blank one of that as well. So, who is ready to get started? So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rob.
All right. Thank you very much, Amy. Good afternoon, folks. Happy to have you here with us as we talk about how do we go about prioritizing our day? How do we manage some of those items that we have to kind of deal with every day? So my question for you to kind of get us started is, does anybody that's currently on this call, do you guys feel like you have too much time in the day? If you have too much time in the day, and you just sit around, you don't know what to do with all the hours and the minutes that you have, I want somebody to say, yes, that's me in the chat box, or give me a green check mark beside your name. I want to hear, I want to see if any of you guys have too much time in your day. Okay, I'm not seeing, I'm seeing some red X's. Don't really see, I think I saw one green check mark with the names. Let's check the chat window. No way, absolutely not, I wish. Yeah, you know, for the most part, like, that's not us, right? We don't sit around and go, man, I have too much time in the day. I think I'm going to watch Tiger King for the 5th time, right? That's not us. But we do try to, you know, just have enough time. Yeah, kind of like what Susan said, but I have enough, right? I just have enough time to get what I need done. So let's kind of think about that, right, over the next 45 minutes or so. Now, our learning objectives, when we think about, you know, how we manage our time and some of those things that go along with this, our learning objectives are to organize and prioritize our tasks, right? And really this is important because when we start thinking about, you know, what's important for us and where are we spending the most of our time, it's really important that we understand what's actually important and where we actually are spending our time. Oftentimes we spend time on things that aren't really all that important. So we're going to take a look at how do we prioritize. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on multitasking. We're going to look at that for a second and say, what exactly is that, right? I think most of us feel like we know what multitasking is, but maybe we're not fully aware of the impact or how multitasking is working for us, or maybe in some cases working against us. So those are the things that we're going to talk about over the next 45 minutes or so. So let's take a look here. Yes, Cynthia, you need to put a spoiler warning with that, right? Multitasking is a myth. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. But first, before we get to multitasking, let's talk a little bit about our priorities, right? So in the chat box, what I'd like for you guys to do is to put in some of those priorities, some of those things that you have to deal with every day, right? What are some of those priorities? Now, these are things that are competing for your time, for your energy, for your attention, all of those things. So let's see what we've got going on in the chat box with this. A home and work, so that's a natural one, right? We've got family on one side, we got work on the other side, and trying to balance those things. Projects that are due. Let's see, I think that was Kelly said self-care. I think that one's really important, right? Because sometimes that one gets shuffled down. Service requests, program requests. Laurie says email, text. Man, let me tell you something that will suck some time away, right? Those emails, absolutely. Reports, projects, chat boxes, homework. Yeah, lots of email, lots of phone calls. Absolutely, right? I think you guys are hitting a lot of that. And Christy actually kind of hits on one that I think is making this one, this session today really relevant, which is working from home, right? With this COVID pandemic and everything that's currently going on with the medical situation and not just the nation, but in the world, right? It really has kind of thrown things upside down. You may have had a pretty solid time management model when you were going into the office, but now that you're home, and not only are you home, but your spouse is home, maybe your children are home, you're trying to maybe do some schooling at home while you're also trying to do your job and be a supportive spouse or partner, right? All of those things become difficult, right? And they're all competing for that same time and energy and focus and attention, all of those things. And so we know that this is a challenge for us, right? Now, we started thinking about what's important. Yeah, those lines do get blurred, right? And so it becomes really important for us to look and say, well, what does it mean to actually prioritize, right? What does that mean? What is a priority for us, right? Our definition here is to designate or treat something as more important than other things. So that's a really easy definition, right? It's something fairly like you're probably sitting there going, of course, Rob, I know what it means to prioritize something. But as Amy said, the lines get blurred really easy, right? I mean, work is really important, but so is family. helping my kid with homeschooling during the COVID pandemic is really important, but I also have this work I have to get done and turned into my management team, right? So how do we go about actually prioritizing those things? Yeah, and those competing priorities. So they're both really important. Now what do I do, right? How do I handle those things? So here's our first activity for you guys for today. Because I think Kristen's kind of on it, right? Set reasonable goals, no limitations, and we also need to understand exactly what it is that we're doing, right? What are some of those things? So what I want you to do is I want you to grab a sheet of paper. Doesn't matter, just grab a sheet of paper somewhere, grab a pen. I want you to start writing down everything you did yesterday, right? So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and start writing things you did yesterday. I want you to come up with at least 10 things that you did yesterday, right? Most of those should be work-related, but if you got a couple personal ones in there, you can mix those in too, right? It could be things like wrote some emails, ran a report, filled out a reimbursement form, did a performance review, did some coaching, met with this employee. Now, if you want to include had lunch, that's fine too. You don't have to put everything though, because if you went to the bathroom like 6 times or 10 times, we don't need to know that. That would be kind of weird if you went to the bathroom that much anyways, but feel free to go ahead and put down something that you did yesterday, right? Is it cheating if I use the to-do list no, absolutely not. Man, if you have a to-do list, that's fantastic. That's a huge piece of time management, is just having a list or something that you're referencing, right? So go ahead and fill that out. I'm going to give you just a minute or two while you're doing that. If you're not quite full or you haven't filled out all 10, 12, 15 things, that's okay. You're going to have a little bit of time. Not to mention, as we kind of talk through the next couple slides, feel free to continue to maybe jot a few things down if it comes to your head. Now, I love this quote right here. I think this quote is really powerful. Stephen Covey said, "The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities," right? I think that's really important. Eileen, I love what you said there. Emails, reports, training, went riding a motorcycle. I ride motorcycles too, so I'm with you there, right? And so I think what Stephen Covey says is really important. What is a priority for us, and are we going to make time for that, rather than just looking at our schedule and prioritizing what's on our schedule? I love the riding a motorcycle piece, because that would be something that's really easy to get lost, right? Maybe riding a motorcycle is something you really enjoy. It brings you a lot of joy. But if you don't schedule it, if you don't say, this is something that's important, I'm going to do this, then something else always jumps in front of that, right? So you have to kind of think the way Stephen Covey is here, which is, let's actually take a look at our priorities and let's schedule those correctly and effectively, rather than just having our schedule that maybe has that big to-do list on it, and then we just kind of treat all of those things equally or everything the same, when that might actually not be the case, right? Now, Dwight Eisenhower actually had some interesting thoughts on that, right? You guys know Dwight Eisenhower, right? He obviously was president of the United States. I think he was the 34th president from 1953 to 1961. But a few other things that often people forget about with Dwight Eisenhower, because we know he was president, but we forget about some of his other roles. He was an Allied Forces Supreme Commander during World War II. He was also NATO's first Supreme Commander. So think about those roles he had, right? Allied Commander, Supreme Commander in NATO, President of the United States. Think about the decisions, the tasks, the things that he had to do every day, right? Those things that took a lot of focus, they took a lot of energy, took a lot of brain power to get that done. And think about, how did he go about that, right? How did he go about his schedule? How did he go about his tasks, making sure that he was doing the things that he needed to do, while at the same time, not spending too much time on things maybe that somebody else should be doing, or maybe there were things that just weren't really all that important, right? Give me a green check mark next to your name if you've ever stopped, like you're in the middle of doing something and then you stopped and said, why am I doing this? Why am I spending time on this? Give me a green check mark if you've ever said that. right? Oh yeah, I'm seeing some green, seeing some green. Yeah, absolutely. I think that happens to us sometimes, right? We're in the middle of doing something, we're going through a process, and then we stop and go, why am I even doing this? Why is this something I'm doing? And I think that is a really good indication that we haven't prioritized. We haven't looked through the work that we have, and we haven't said, well, wait a second. Is this important enough for me to be doing it? Is this important for me to be doing this now? Is this something that I even should be doing, right? And so Dwight, when he was kind of challenged with these different things, created this this matrix. Now, in learning and development, we love to have a quadrants. We love to have models with quadrants, right? And we love it because it's easy. It's easy to remember, and they're easy to use. And so here's the quadrant kind of chart we're going to use today, and I encourage you all to use this and look at this, and we're about to kind of use this in an activity. So this will go a long way into helping us kind of, look at our tasks, look at our schedule, look at the things that we're doing, and say, where are we actually spending our time, right? So the one in the upper left-hand corner, right, the one that says important and urgent. Now, obviously, these are tasks that are important. They need to get done, and they need to be done as quickly as possible, right? So important and urgent. The next box to the right is important, not urgent. Okay, so these are things that are important. We need to get them done, but they don't have to be done right now, right? A really good example of this is our car registration, right? When you get your car registration from the state says you need to have this done by whatever date, right? Now, that's important. You need to get it done, because if you don't, you're going to get in trouble. And as long as we get it done in a reasonable amount of time, it doesn't ever become urgent, right? It's just something that's important, and we get it done, and it's fine. But now, if you wait until right up to the day that your current one expires, now it went from important to both important and urgent, right? It's both of those things. So we want to make sure that we're keeping our important, not urgent things where they belong. Now, the lower box, not important but urgent. Okay, so these are things that aren't terribly important, but it's kind of urgent, right? We still want to get those things done. I think of maybe taking the trash out, right? So taking the trash out, it's not terribly important. That's not a hugely important task, but when that trash starts stinking, it's going to be pretty urgent for us to get it out of the house, right? So not important and urgent. And then the last box over there, lower right-hand side, is not important, not urgent, right? So this is stuff that really, why are we doing it, right? So if we want to look at it in maybe a little different way, I think this slide really tells us all we need to know about our quadrants, right? That box number one, that is stuff that we need to do, right? We need to do those things. Think about customer requests. Think about quality issues, things at work that, hey, if we don't get this fixed, this is going to be a huge impact to the business. Think about deadlines that you have at work, right? These are important tasks. We have to do them, right? We have to get them done. Now, oftentimes, box number one, we can't get rid of the stuff in box number one, right? It's always going to come. There's always going to be things in box one. Now, the problem is if we don't plan accordingly, right? If we don't use box number two, then our day gets filled up with box number one, and we're just constantly responding to these things, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have a decent number of things in box two. Box two is relationship building, that's new opportunities, that's thinking strategically about what's coming up, what do you need to be doing, right? Now, these are things that we can plan out. Now, we know that if we don't plan them, right, if we don't plan them accordingly, then they become box number one. So we want to make sure that we have things in box number two and that we're doing them in a scheduled way, that they're planned. That way, when we have a few of those things from box number one show up, we can do those, we can respond to those, but we're not living in box one, right? If we live in box one, that's a lot of stress. There's always something coming up, and generally it doesn't put us in our best frame of mind as far as work goes. Now, box number three is kind of interesting. I like box number three, right? Box number three is all about delegation, right? These are tasks that we can delegate out. These might be phone calls, might be some emails, might even be some meetings that you don't have to attend, right? These are things that we say, hey, I can delegate this to somebody else. It's urgent, it needs to get done, but I can delegate this, right? My dad did that with me in mowing the grass, right? He could delegate that out to me. So think about those things that are maybe challenging your time resources and say, what can I delegate? What can I hand to somebody else, right? Now, box number 4. Box number 4 is the one we have to really watch out for, right? Because at least box 1, 2, and 3, that's stuff that is contributing towards our day, right? We're being productive in some manner, maybe not as productive as we could be. But now, box number 4, this one, they're time wasters, right? These are the things that are trivial, that really aren't important. We want to do our best to eliminate these activities altogether, right? So we want to be really careful with our box number 4. Now, I do like to point out with box number 4 that if you want to go take a walk, right? If you want to step outside and go take a walk somewhere, that's okay, right? 15 minutes, walk around the building, step outside, go say hello to a friend at work. That's fine. In fact, those are things we can plan that, right? We can plan that in box number 2. Go talk to Sally or go take a walk outside. The problem is if our 15-minute walk outside turns into an hour-long walk around the city, right? So it went from box number 2 into box number 4. So, you know, a few things, right, that kind of that bring you some enjoyment, that make your day better. That's okay. We just want to make sure that they don't go too far, right? So now that I've covered this, exactly, yeah, watch out for that internet rabbit hole. I like to listen to YouTube 90s music while I'm doing work, and that's the worst thing in the world, because next thing you know, I'm 10, 12 videos deep with 90s music, and I haven't done anything that I needed to do. So we have to know what those kind of internet rabbit holes are for us, and be careful with those, right? Absolutely. So let me ask you guys, you can put it in the chat box here. Does this make sense to everyone? What questions do you have? Do you think having a chart like this would be useful for you? I encourage people to do this maybe on a weekly basis, where they just kind of take a look at their thing, at their tasks, the things that they're doing. I think it brings for me personally, I looked at it and saw all the things that I had in box number 3 that I could give to somebody else, right? Those were the things that I stopped and go, why am I doing this, right? Somebody else can do this. While you guys are responding to that, which box do you feel like you struggle with the most? Do you feel like everything is just like you just have to respond to things, firefighting? Do you feel like box number 4 is a challenge for you? Do you feel like you don't delegate when you should? Let's see, what are we seeing? Delegation. I live in box 1. That's tough sometimes, right? Let's see, 2, 3. Sounds like a lot of delegation. Lydia says rabbit holes. Buying more through Amazon. Yeah, exactly. Don't delegate when I need to. Live in box 1 and 3. 2 becomes 4 very quickly. Yeah, it absolutely can. Struggling with delegation. Amy, I'm hearing delegation is something that maybe we need to take a look at for a future webinar, right? Absolutely. All right. And Kelly, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, delegation. Know one to delegate to. I think that's another challenge, right? Because then we have to think about, okay, well, how do we delegate? What do we delegate? If there's nobody there to delegate to, what do we do with these tasks? Right. Okay. Excellent. Deanna, I love that. A team exercise. I love that. Right. As a manager, I know when I would do this with my team, it was hugely eye-opening for me when I said, "Let me see everything that you're doing and put these in places." And it was amazing to me how many times people didn't understand what was urgent and what was important. There was a misalignment there, and then where they were spending time on things that they didn't need to. So all of those things I think would be great. All right, thank you guys for responding. Now let's kind of just take a stab at this. See how you guys are doing with this. So we've got our 4 boxes, right? Box 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now let's see what box you would put this in, right? What box you would put this in? The task would be finish up a proposal for a key client, right? So what box would that go into, right? Finishing up a proposal for a key client. Okay, seeing a bunch of ones, a few twos. Yeah, I think when we think about finishing finishing it up, right? Finishing it up. That would probably be box one. Although hopefully we were planning ahead, and it's not like we realized today, oh no, I got to finish this, right? Hopefully we did plan this a little bit. It's just that it is due later today, and this is something I have to complete today, right? You think about a proposal for business, that's something that's going to bring money to the organization. That's something that you definitely are going to want to get done, right? Anything with a timeline, with that deadline, right? That's something you need to finish up to complete. Exactly. Okay, excellent, good job. Let's try another one. You guys did good with that one. So let's try another one. This one. How about watching cat videos online? You know those crazy videos where the cats stick their head down in the like the toilet paper roll and runs around with their head in there. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Yes, I think you guys nailed that. Unless your job is running a website that is cat videos, then it's probably going to be a 4. If your job is cat video website, then it's probably a 1 or a 2. Jerry says it's a 4 if it's not cute. Yeah, if it's really cute, that's what you send to all of your coworkers and help them waste time too, right? Excellent. All right, so that's box number 4. That's something that we definitely don't want to do. Now, like I said earlier, there are things that do bring us joy that we feel like, hey, this is something I'd like to do. It might be listening to music. It might be watching a cat video. And if it's 1 cat video, maybe that's okay. But if it's 10 cat videos, now we have a problem, right? So, think about what are some of the other things I can do. Like if like for me, because I would get sucked into the 90s video hole in YouTube, is I stopped using YouTube for music, and I just have my iPod where there's no videos and it just goes on shuffle, and that helps me concentrate on my work, right? So what are some of the things that you need to eliminate to make sure that some of those things that do bring us joy, that help you through your day, don't become box number 4 activities, right? Yeah, 10 may be okay, but 3 hours later, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, Cynthia has a good one. Turn off CNN. Turn off the news. Sometimes that sucks us into what everything that's going on, right? Now, some of the other things you can think about, right, on YouTube is we do have some great things, right? TED Talks and inspirational things like that. Things that might be connected to work where you want to unplug maybe a second and give your brain a chance to kind of, remove yourself a little bit, but then maybe still be productive, right? So it's entertainment, it's giving your brain a break, but it's still productive and it's still moving you in the right direction for your day, right? Okay, so let's try one more. You guys are doing really, really good. Let's see, last one. How about this one? Take some time to get your thoughts organized around your goals and the direction you want to go in the 3rd quarter. All right, so you're thinking about your goals, think about your plan for 3rd quarter. Okay, everybody's saying box 2, box 2, box 2, box 2. All right, good job. Hey, you guys knocked that one out of the park. Excellent work on our boxes. What I'm seeing here is you guys have the boxes down pat, right? So that's good. So now, the next thing, that list that we made right at the beginning of our session today. What I want you to do is I want you to pull that list back out, right? So pull that list back out, and then what I want you to do is to actually think, where would you go, right? Where would you go with your tasks? Which box would these things go in? And if you want to even go ahead and make a little X right there on your scratch sheet of paper and plot them so it would look like this, right? So for instance, I have item 6 and item 4. So that would be item 6 and item 4 off of my list here. Those would have been urgent things. Then items 1, 2, and 8 would have been not urgent but important things, right? So go ahead and take a minute and take a look and see where would I put these, right? We're actually going to send you a blank, the template with your bonus content, so you're going to have a blank one. But I want you to kind of think, where would these things be? And if you want to go ahead and just kind of scroll it out, feel free to do so, right? What does your matrix look like, right? Are you using your time wisely, right? Are there any opportunities for you to actually be more efficient? Let's see. Stephanie says most of hers are in box 1. Okay. Well, the good thing about everything being in box 1 is you're being really productive, right? You're getting stuff done, and that's good. We would just want to look and see what are those things that are in box 1 that maybe we could put in box 2, right? We can get those things maybe not to be as stressful, right? Shannon says box 1, box 2. Okay. Anybody surprised by the number of things they have maybe in box 3 or box 4? Okay. Let's see. Lynette says mostly in 2, a few in 1. Excellent. Excellent. Good work, Lynette. Yeah. Right. I think this can be very helpful. And like I said earlier, actually having your team do these, having your team actually kind of scope this out can be extremely helpful for them. I know for me personally, I like to do this. Like I said, every week, every other week or something like that, and kind of stop and take a look at things. There are things, especially that land in box 3 for us, that we do it because we've always done it, or we did it because somebody asked us to, but we never stop to actually go, wait a second, is this something I should be doing, right? Because the reality is what we said at the very beginning, right, which is we all almost feel like we don't have enough hours in the day, right? We need more hours in the day. So if we've got things in box 3 or box 4, that is taking time away from things that would be in box 1 or box 2, right? I often look at it and I go, you look at really famous people, whether it's Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or even movie stars, Beyonce, and just all the people that are so uberly successful in the world. And the thing is, they all still have 24 hours, right? They have the same time window we do. Nobody gets more time. We all have to deal with the same amount of time. So we have to kind of take a look at these charts and go, well, wait a second, where is my time going? And is it going towards the things that are most important, right? And we really want to make sure that we are scheduling our priorities. So those things that we say are really important, those things land in box 2, so we know that they get done. We allow some space for the things in box 1 to come in because, like I said earlier, we will never get rid of box 1. It's always going to be there. So most of our stuff should be in 2 and 1. Every now and then, maybe something lands in 3. If you have too much in 3, we need to move that to somebody else. And in box number 4, we just need to keep an eye on it and make sure that none of that gets too out of control. Okay. All right. So excellent. Now we got our 4 quadrants there. Like I said, I encourage you to use those. I encourage you to have your team use those. It's a great activity. Give you a little insight into what their world is like. It also helps you understand if they're getting stressed out about stuff, right? Because if you have a team and your team's living in box 1, they're probably extremely stressed out. Now, if everything's in box 1, right? If you've got a whole bunch of stuff in box 1, let me tell you what you're probably doing. You are probably trying to multitask, right? So think about that for a second, right? It seems like right now we are all super busy, right? And in fact, I see people, right? You go out somewhere and you run into somebody you haven't seen, and you say, well, how are things going? And they say, well, I'm busy. And my response to that is become, well, congratulations on being busy. We're all busy, right? The question is, are you effective, right? Are you actually effective? And let's start thinking about multitasking, and is that effective, right? I love what Amy just said. Being busy is a badge of honor. Yes, people are like, hey, look at me. I'm busy, right? I'm moving at 100 miles an hour. I am trying to do 5 different projects all at the same time. Look at me, right? So let me ask you guys, do you think you are good at multitasking? If you are, give me a green check mark. If you feel like you're terrible at multitasking, give me a red X. Nobody, don't worry, nobody's going to judge you, right? So we got some green check marks. People feel like they're pretty good. We got some red X's. Okay. All right, I'm just scrolling through, looking at everybody here. All right. How about in the chat window? What do you do that you think makes you good at multitasking? Let's see. Paul says there's science to say multitasking causes brain damage. Let's see. Helen says planning ahead. All right. So planning ahead, keeping a checklist. Maybe better at prioritizing important and urgent. Okay, and not good at it. Let's see, some things get done, others don't. Yeah, that's a really good insight, right? I think I'm good at slipping items in with other items and slots, but multitasking is not really possible. Okay, great. If I start with a list, I can multitask throughout the day. Okay, however, if multiple stuff hits the fan, I go off the rails. Okay, thank you, Nicholas. I think that's a really good example, right? So there are certain things that we can multitask, right? There are certain things that kind of lend themselves to multitasking and doing things certain ways. But there are other things that when we try to multitask, it doesn't work at all. And exactly what Peter says, switching tasks, it actually takes more time, right? It takes us longer to get something done, right? So, let's kind of think about that for a second, right? We've got two different things. We've got background tasking and we've got task switching, right? So there's a couple different ways we can think about this, right? Multitasking actually came from computers, from a computer background, right? Where people noticed that computers could do several functions at the same time, right? But then we stop and think, well, does that actually work, right? Are we able to do these things? So when we look at background tasking, that is really just something happening in the background. That might be, music's being played while I'm washing the dishes, right? That's background tasking. I'm listening to music, I'm washing the dishes. But then we've also got task switching, and that is actually trying to do one thing and then do another thing, right? So one is background tasking, where I can listen and wash the dishes or cook dinner, but I can't necessarily task switch all that effectively. And that would be something like maybe working on a PowerPoint while you're also watching a Christopher Nolan movie, right? Where details matter. And so you're trying to go back and forth between those two things, and it just isn't going to work, right? So we know that task switching methodology, right? The kind of the moving back and forth, that type of multitasking doesn't work, right? And there's actually a really high cost of multitasking, right? There's a really high cost of doing things that way, right? So the first thing is we have to understand what are the things that are background tasking, right? Because we can do those, right? As Marie says, exercise and walk, make phone calls at the same time, right? We can do those things. But then also understanding what are those things that we cannot multitask, right? Now, when it comes to multitasking, or kind of task switching, going back and forth, a few things that we've already seen it mentioned actually is it increases time to complete a task, right? So when we're going back and forth, our brain actually has to reset. You're doing this and then you're doing this. You're not actually doing these two things at the same time. You're actually doing this one or you're doing this one, right? We've got some studies actually that kind of show this. Some researchers actually looked at some young people who were attempting to quickly shift back and forth from one job to another. And what we saw was there was a lag time there. And even if the lag time was only a second, half a second or something like that it took for their brain to reset, it's still there. And if you add that up over the course of, an hour, course of a day, that adds up to a lot of time. Especially if you say, well, I'm trying to listen to somebody talk while I'm typing an email. Well, that 1 second that your brain's going back and forth trying to do both of those things at the same time, you may miss out on something hugely important, right? So they said something and you didn't hear it, which takes us to the next piece, which is it lowers your quality of work, right? So as Amy says, it's risky, right? And it's going to be counterproductive, because if it really lowers the quality of work, then you're going to have to redo the work possibly. It's going to be a bad look for you. We know that it just doesn't work, right? Let's see. James says, I definitely can't write an email and hold a conversation. Very risky. Yeah. How many times have you tried to do that and you accidentally typed something that you were saying into the email, right? So we know that that's not the best way to go about things, right? And it just doesn't work, right? All right, so let's take a look at our third one here. Third one, increases your level of stress. Now, I think this one's kind of the most interesting one, right? Because we know that it takes more time, and we know that it increases the chances of messing things up. What that does is it increases your level of stress. So you came in today and you needed 2 things done, right, by the end of the day. Instead of focusing on one, you try to work on both of them in the afternoon. And so lunch comes around and you don't have either one of them done. They're both still not done. So now your level of stress is going to go up. Now, we know that puts people on edge, right? When your stress level gets high, you're looking at some serious health issues if you constantly are dealing with this. And that's the reason why box number 1 and living in box number 1 is so dangerous, right? Because if we stay in box 1, we're going to end up doing a lot of multitasking. If we're doing a lot of multitasking, the health issues there, headaches, stomach problems, sleep problems, back problems, heart disease, depression, all of those things happen, right? So we want to make sure that those things that we're doing, right, at the same time are more of those background tasking and not this actual multitasking where we're switching back and forth that we know is not going to take us where we want to be. So you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, Rob, that's great. I know multitasking is bad, but what am I supposed to do about it? How am I supposed to fix this, right? So here are suggestions for you. First one, schedule some concentrated time. So that takes us back to what we said earlier about our quadrants, right? Box 2, schedule that concentrated time. I even had a coworker who at one point said, I'm going to just check my email on the hour. So she would check her email at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Because what would happen is those emails were constantly coming in and interrupting her, and so she was multitasking between working on what she was trying to work on while at the same time responding to emails. And so she just put at the bottom of her email, I respond to emails at the top of the hour, right? I like some of what we're hearing here. Cut off the door, cut off your phone, close the door, not cut off the door. Yeah, all of those things. Manage those interruptions. Right? Making sure that you're not kind of getting inundated. Hide in the bathroom. Well, that's an option too. Actually, sometimes if you really need to focus on reading through something, that's not terribly a bad idea, right? Take advantage of batch processing. That's the next one, right? Taking a look and seeing, can I do all of these things at the same time? Like I said, my coworker, she did all of her emails at the top of the hour, so that worked. It could also be I'm going to run all the reports at the same time. It could be I'm going to make my phone calls at the same time. It might be when I walk over to that other side of the building, I'm going to do everything I need to over there when I walk over there. So I'm not walking over there 5 or 6 times during the day. And then the last one there is manage those distractions, right? Whatever you need to manage those and make sure that things aren't going too far. The one other thing when it comes to multitasking, this is usually what I say that hits home with folks because sometimes people are like, oh no, I'm good with multitasking, I can do it. Usually the question I ask is it okay to text and drive, right? I think everybody knows texting and driving doesn't work, and texting and driving doesn't work is because either you're texting or you're driving. You're not actually texting and driving. Either you're paying attention to the road or you're looking at your phone. And you can't do those two things at one time. And we know you can't do those two things at the same time because it increases the risk of accidents and it's extremely dangerous. So that's a real world example where most of us know the multitasking doesn't work. We just need to apply that same line of thinking to everything else and recognize I need to just concentrate on driving and I will check my phone when I get there, right? So I just need to concentrate on getting this report done and I will worry about the email after I'm done with my report, right? The more we can get into that line of thinking, the more effective we will be with our day. So in the chat box, let's hear from you. What are some of the strategies? What are some of the things that you guys do to help you focus and get work done? Let's hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you guys do? Let's see, set a timer, lists. Lucinda, I love lists. I actually try to create my lists, like on Monday or actually Friday afternoon. I say these are the things I need to do next week, and then I carry that list over. Yeah, Monday to-do list, make lists every day. Yeah. I think the list piece is really big. We talk about stress. I think the stress piece is really big. A lot of times making the list is cathartic for folks, right? It kind of gets it off their chest. So if you make a list at the end of the day, it allows you to go home and kind of leave things at work and then pick it back up when you come home, back to work the next day, right? So I think lists are really good. Calendar notifications, using that calendar, right? I encourage everybody to use the calendar to create not just your meeting appointments, but also deadlines and things like that, right? So you can actually drag emails over. The tasks list in Outlook is huge. A lot of people don't use those, but there are a lot of technology tools that we can use to help us out, right? Let's see, a block off time in the calendar. I think that one's really good too, right? Sometimes that me time where I know I'm going to need this time, man, block that out. I used to have coworkers where I'd look at their schedule and I thought they had meetings all day, only to find out that no, they just schedule, an hour or two every day to make sure that they can get other stuff done. That's how they manage their stress level, right? Sounds like you guys are doing some great things there, right? Daily planners, reminders, Post-it notes. Yeah, time blocking works. Yeah, Post-it notes are interesting. I always use a lot of Post-it notes too. I just tell people, be careful, don't let your desk become overwhelmed with Post-it notes, right? All right, so one of the last things I want to mention here is energy, right? So we all have energy that's kind of important, right? I know Amy is a very morning person, right? I get emails from Amy at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not kidding about the 5 o'clock in the morning thing, right? I get emails from her, and she's talking, hey, we've got this project going, or we're going to do some learning and development for this company, or a leadership class for this company, and this is what I'm thinking, and I'm reading that email at probably 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. But now I know I have sent emails to Amy at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning where I'm saying, hey, I got this great idea, right? Because my kind of energy map kicks in probably after about 7 o'clock in the evening. You know, that's just where I get my energy. So when you start thinking about the tasks that we have, right? The things that we need to get done, it really is helpful if we start using our energy mapping, right? So I know I'm not a morning person, so I tried to put all of my really heavy lifting during the day after lunch, from probably 2 to 6 o'clock during the regular work day, at least 2 to 6 o'clock was my sweet spot. So I wanted all my heavy lifting there in the afternoon. Other folks, they want that stuff right there in the morning, right? So just understand, where's your energy mapping, using that as best you can, right? And like I said, put those heavy items, those things are going to take a lot of energy, a lot of concentration, line those up for those times of the day where you have the most energy, right? When we look at our energy, managing our energy, there's a book here, the way we're working isn't working, right? So I encourage everybody, if you want to really kind of take a look at that, grab this book. We've got all kinds of different sources of energy, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual energy. We do want to balance that energy expenditure with energy renewal. So know where do you get your energy from, and then how does that kind of replenish itself. I love that we mentioned the motorcycle. Whoever said motorcycle at the beginning of the day, right? The spring and summer was always so great, because if I could ride my motorcycle into work, it filled my energy level, and I could get more done in the morning just because I had a very pleasant, enjoyable ride into work, right? So find out what helps you renew your energy and kind of try to balance those things out, right? Build some of that capacity. Positive rituals help you sustain performance, right? So knowing those things that build energy go a long way into helping you and saying, hey, this can really replenish my energy. This can really, make my day go better, right? It really helped me out. So we've got a TED Talk that we're going to send out with some bonus content that'll talk a little bit about energy. And we have come to the end of our time together. So what questions do you have for me? Kelly, I love that. Turn off all notifications on your phone. Yeah, those notifications, those constant notifications talk about something that'll take away a lot of time. Absolutely. Thank you guys very much. What questions do you have for me or for Amy when it comes to prioritization and scheduling and energy mapping and all of the things that we talked about?
Yeah, while those questions are coming into the chat box, I just wanted to cover a couple of extra quick things. If you have not already, we only have 3 webinars left. Oh! One is on June 10th, June 17th, and the 24th. And Rob is going to be back in the house for our June 17th, the Power of Personality. So that one's going to be obviously fabulous. And I'll be leading next week's webinar on working effectively in virtual and remote teams. So we still have slots open. Please join us for those. And then also just wanted to say, hey, if any of these webinars or any of the things we talked about today, I know delegations seem to be a hot topic. Let us know if you would like us to bring some of this training to your company. Our website is there, and our motto is unleashing potential and creating impact. And that's really what it's all about. We're trying to find ways to make your workforce the best version of itself that it can be. So, let us know how we can help you. Check out our website. Of course, you can always connect with me as well. And then finally here, let's stay connected. So, find me on LinkedIn. Rob's on LinkedIn as well. Check out or connect with our continuing ed department, and of course we've got our websites there. So let's go back over to the chat room and see what questions are coming in. What do you see, Rob?
Well, I just responded to Debbie. Debbie asked, what do you do with a boss who kind of puts everything in box number one, right? And I think we've all had those leaders, right? They give us something, they expect it, later today. They expect it, immediately. They expect it yesterday. I think that's a great conversation to maybe, have with that manager or that leader and saying, hey, can you give me a little bit heads up here? Can we work around some of this planning? Sometimes some of those things are things that actually we may see coming. We just haven't been officially communicated to yet. And so in those instances, it might be, hey, I already know this is coming. My manager hasn't asked me to do it yet, but I know it's coming my way. So go ahead and try to be proactive with that and maybe talk to them ahead of time. But I do think there's a lot of power in sitting down with this chart right here and saying, I am living in box number one. Can you please help me kind of reprioritize some of this? The other thing that I've found success with managers that did that was helping them understand, okay, if you keep putting everything in box number one, I can't get all of that done. So if you give me this new task, that's fine, I'll do it. But which of these other tasks that you've assigned me can I take off? Right?
And
there's only so much time in the day. You go ahead.
Yeah, Rob, that's a great opener when you're talking with your director or your supervisor or your boss or whoever, and they're giving you more work, and you're like, yeah, I would absolutely love to do this. Can you help me? Here's what else I've got on my plate. What else could be moved off of my plate so that I can accommodate this? And just having that conversation, because sometimes it may be that they've given you stuff, and just didn't realize that you're still working on it or it's in process, and may not even realize that you have that much going on. And so then they go, okay, well, let me talk to this person. They might be able to handle it. Or maybe it is that they go, oh, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that later. So yeah, having those conversations can be a game changer.
Yeah, and I also, a lot of times the things they've given you are things that were in their box three, right? So there were things that went to your box three, and a lot of times leaders they have their sources. Like, I know I can trust box three with this person, and so they just keep giving you box three, and they don't realize how loaded up you've become. Their box three is your box one, and so just having that conversation can go a long way in helping open their eyes. They go, oh, I didn't realize I've given you that much. And they can start delegating to somebody else.
Yep. And I'm looking at some of the comments. When we talk about energy, that's another thing too, is that, all of us have certain times of the day where we are at our peak. Obviously, I am a morning person. I'm the early bird. I'm actually giving out worms to the other birds. But I recognize for myself that about this time, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I start fizzling out. So one of the things, and this was one of the suggestions in the chat box, is, tackle those hard tasks that you've got at your peak time. If you're an afternoon or evening person, then tackle those hard projects during your peak time when you're at your best. So energy, and of course energy ebbs and flows throughout the day. One of the things that we've talked about in some of the other webinars too is, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And, if you feel yourself running down, get up, change sceneries, walk around the building, go do 10 push-ups, or, well, I wouldn't be doing 10 push-ups, but you guys could do 10 push-ups. I could do about 3, and that's if I had some help. But anyway, do something that, helps re-energize you. I am the world's worst about caffeine. I've given it up. But, try to stay away from caffeine. That actually dehydrates you. But go get a glass of water, these are different things that you can do to help with your energy. And that TED Talk that we're going to send you from Tony Schwartz, he talks a lot about energy. And, you know, if you can't, you know, a lot of us are in positions where we're taking care of other people, we're leading a team, but if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not in the best position to take care of others. So that was my 2 cents worth about energy as well. All right, what other questions do we have?
I love the question from Lydia here. She said, what can you call it instead of multitasking when someone asks if you're a good multitasker? She says, well, I'm a great prioritizer doesn't really get across that you can handle multiple projects. I like, the way I like to frame it is I'm great at managing priorities, right? So I'm really good at managing various priorities and various things, you know, and then ensuring that I get stuff done, right? I'm good at managing priorities and I get stuff done, rather than saying I'm really good at multitasking. Because when it comes down to it, I'm not very good at multitasking, but I am really good at those other 2 things.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, you know, multitasking, and there is all kind of science behind, you know, it actually impacts your memory and all these other things, but I am terrible about putting something in the oven, let's say like cinnamon rolls or something like that, something yummy, and, you know, then I'll get stuck looking at something on my phone, and the next thing I know, I'm like, what is that smell? So I'm like, oh, shit, I burned more cinnamon rolls. Making sure that you're focusing, not that you have to stand there in front of the oven and watch them bake, but, you know, being cognizant of what you've got going on can make a difference.
Yeah, I do like, let's see, Lydia also says, your high energy may be different tasks at different times of the day. I think that one's really good too, right? You might have the right level of energy for this task. Like, I am not a morning person, but yet I can go to the gym in the morning, and it actually gives me energy for the rest of the day. I kind of have to drag myself there, but once I'm there, I'm good, right? And so I love that idea with the energy mapping as well. You just, you know, just find what amount of energy do I need that matches up with this task and that works well. And when it works well, don't abandon it, right? Just stay with that, and let that kind of push you through the day, and find those things that give you energy to build you up for those harder tasks.
And if you guys need a shot of energy, just give me a call and I'll hype you up. Same thing with Rob. I always, you know what, it's the other thing, you know, I get a lot of energy from Rob. I mean, he is, I'm telling you guys, when he is energy, he is. And so sometimes I'll call him and go, let me just bounce this idea off of you. And I feed off of his energy. So, you know, that's the other thing. Find people that have good energy and surround yourself with those kind of folks, because they will help you. They'll make a difference. So, all right. Well, unless there are any other questions, we are almost at the top of the hour. We appreciate you guys being here with us today. This is such an important topic, you know, making sure that, you know, you're staying on task and prioritizing what really needs to be done. As I mentioned, you know, we do have this course. It's a half-day course. We'd love to bring it on site. Please fill out the evaluation and, you know, make sure that you're tuned in for next week. So thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.